Bhakti-śāstra namine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vedanta Swaminiti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we welcome back all the devotees for the ongoing session on the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge. So the very chapter is entitled the Transcendental Knowledge. So by hearing the Transcendental Knowledge about Krishna from the Supreme Lord Himself, we get enlightened and we know about His glories, about His, about the transcendental nature of His form, His birth, His activities. And at the beginning of this chapter, Krishna also explained how that this transcendental knowledge was received, the history of the Bhagavad Gita was discussed, and then the attitude in which it has to be approached, also how it is received in parampara, and how with submission and in the mood of a devotee the knowledge can be received. And Krishna himself elaborates about his birth, his activities, his appearance, his transcendental nature. Then further Krishna explains about how what are the stumbling blocks in this bhakti, raga, bhaya, krodha. Then he also explains how others who do not directly surrender into him, they are also in different levels. And for whatever advancement that they are indeed trying to make is also because of the mercy of the Lord. Without the mercy of the Lord, nothing can happen. So that is also discussed. Then further, Lord Krishna discusses about why many are going and taking shelter of the demigods because of the quick results that they acquire. They go to the demigods. They want to satisfy their material desires. Then further, Krishna explains about how he has created the system of the varna and ashrama. He has created the system so that the conditioned souls can purify their propensity to enjoy this material world. Everyone, because of our different conditionings and because of our acquaintance with the three modes of nature, we are exhibiting certain qualities, certain moods, certain acts. So those conditioning can be purified being part of the system of varna and ashrama. Then Krishna says that although the system I have created, I am beyond the varnas and ashramas. I am not bound by karma. I am not bound by the reactions that one receives by performing some activity, the karma phal. I am not bound. And while discussing yesterday, we also touched upon the topic of how there is a misunderstanding of Bhagavad Gita in India, how they think that Bhagavad Gita is promoting caste system among the humans. So actually these are the scientific divisions in the society which we see throughout the world. You may belong to any part of the world, there are always intelligent class of people, there is always a set of people who are ready to offer protection to to others. There is a set of people who have the natural inclination to do farming and be part of the trade, and then there is a set of people who are always ready to be loyal to the other three classes. This kind of a division is inevitable in the society, and Krishna has perfectly ordained that. So it should not be misunderstood as some mundane caste system. And then Bhagavad Gita, if someone misunderstands Bhagavad Gita, it's very unfortunate. That's how they lose. They become demoniac. And also we see in the scriptures as well. There are many examples that are given. There is also Srila Prabhupada quotes about Satya Kama Javala. So when Gautama Muni was approached by a son of a service lady, so she has, that means that she has served many men, and he wanted to be part of the Gurukula. He wanted to get training, But when this boy came, and this boy did not know who his father is, what is his background. So the Vedas are taught to the Brahmanas. So Gautama Rishi sent him back to his mother and asked him to go and find out what is your background. So he heard from his mother. Mother said that you tell that your mother is she does service for other men. So he was very honest. He came and informed Gautama Muni the same information what he received from his mother. So for his honesty and his truthfulness, he was taken into the Gurukula, and then he was engaged in service, and then it is explained later in the scriptures that he attained the import of the Vedas. So that is there. So that yesterday we were discussing how Srila Prabhupada instituted this. He gave opportunity to everyone, men from any background, provided if he is sincere enough to accept the instructions of the Lord and go through the process of purification, then he can also be qualified to worship the deities, to perform yajnas and like that. So Krishna, after having explained this, he has, and also just one other point, that not to forget, that there is also several examples given, we can see from even other sampradayas as well. Ramanujacharya himself, also Sripad Ramanujacharya, he encouraged many people from different backgrounds. They were also engaged in the Lord's service. In the Madhva Sampradaya, Vyasa Tirtha, he himself also initiated a person who was from a Shudra background, although the others generally it is not. So he was allowed to do. There is a lot of story behind it. I am just giving you a hint that the concept is there. They were allowed to engage in the Lord's service. Everybody has got an equal opportunity to serve the Lord, irrespective of his background. So that has to be understood. And also we know the story of Kanakadasa, Purandaradasa, so many dasas are there. They were all great devotees of the Lord. So because of the vested interests and then hidden political agenda, some of the politicians, they completely misconstrue this real information of the Bhagavad Gita. So that has to be understood. So that's an important verse, and to know it in proper perspective is very much important. So that's why yesterday we were stressing this point. Krishna was speaking as Guna Karma Vibhagashara, not Janma Karma Vibhagashara. So that was discussed. And after having discussed all these things, after Lord Krishna spoke about that how he is not affected by karma, how he is not affected by the fruits of the karma, and if one understands this about the Supreme Lord, he becomes free from the effects of karma. That was also discussed. And then Krishna very much stressed that, so Arjuna, you follow the system that was created in the ancient time, follow your predecessors. Yesterday we did Purvatarai, so all those things we discussed. Then we also discussed about, Krishna begins to speak about the karma, akarma and vikarma. Why? Because we need to know how to act in this world, what is the proper way to act, how we have to respond in different situations, so that we will not be bound by our activities. Okay. So when we are in proper knowledge, so that's why this chapter is also entitled Transcendental Knowledge. When we are in proper knowledge, we will know how to act, and by our activities we will not get bound. Otherwise, it will be we will think that we have taken a path of spiritual life, but the consequence or the result will be disaster. And also the proper understanding is required. What is karma, what is vikarma, what is akarma. If that understanding is not there properly, then also we may end up in false renunciation, and we may end up in misunderstanding someone who is properly situated. For example, we can take the case of Shaubari Muni. Shaubari Muni was doing deep meditation within the waters, and he became very possessive. He wanted to, he did not want Garuda to come and then take the fish from there. So he was also thinking himself that he is protecting the fishes. But Garuda is a transcendental personality. He is the Lord's personal servant. He is carrying the Lord everywhere. So whatever Garuda does, it is yajna. So somebody may even doubt, what is this Garuda? You say he's a Vaishnava, why is he eating fish? It's also mentioned, if you read Mahabharata about his birth and what are the activities he was doing, he used to eat turtles, elephants, snakes. So how do you understand this? So Lord gave him the blessings that whatever he does by associating all these creatures, they are all elevated. They all attained perfection. So Garuda is completely pure. So you know from the Bhagavatam and from other scriptures, just the flapping of Garuda, it's the sound is like the Samaveda. It is mentioned, and his only desire is to always please the Lord. So Shaubari Muni did not understand the position of Garuda because of being possessive, and then what happened? You see the result of improper understanding, and because of being puffed up by possessiveness, Shaubari Muni he fell down from his position. So it's so important to know the position of some great Vaishnava, the position of the activities of a Vaishnava, and also what is right, what is wrong should be known. So Krishna elaborates about the aspect of what is the proper action, what is improper action, and what is sinful action. So that is discussed. So yesterday we just stopped there. So now we will continue with text 18. Karmanya karma yaf pashyed akarmani cha karmayah sabuddiman manushyeshu sayukta kritsna karma krit. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. So now here Krishna is speaking about akarma in karma and karma in akarma. So let's try to understand what is this. So when we say akarma, what is it? It refers to, in simple terms if you see, it refers to devotional service. Or when you perform yajna for the Lord, it becomes akarma. There is no reaction for that. Correct? So we can see the situation of Arjuna also. Arjuna, if he is going to take part in this war, is going to engage in violence. He is going to kill so many people. But then, is he going to acquire any reaction for that? No, because if he is going to do it for the pleasure of the Lord, he is doing it for on the principle of dharma. So there is going to be no reactions. So he is performing activity, but the result is inaction. That means there is no reaction for it. So this is akarma. So that has to be understood. And now you perform an activity. So let's say you have taken up a role of a sadhu, or you have taken up, you have said that you have renounced everything, and then if you misuse your position, then what will happen? You will get karmic results. For example, let's take a simple case of even Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra, he went to do meditation. He was in deep trance. For thousands of years he was meditating. We also heard in the beginning that when someone is not fully purified, and if he takes up to the process of meditation or the process of jnana, if he is not fully purified, then what happens? He cannot be in the position. So when Menaka came, all his tapasya, everything went for a toss. He was into so much action with Menaka after that. So then there is then later what happened. So things have to be understood in proper action. So Krishna is clarifying what is action in inaction and what is inaction in action. So inaction in action, I just mentioned to you that how by performing activities you are not bound by karma. So this is what Krishna is going to elaborate in more verses, because that was the most important thing for Arjuna to hear. So he did not want to take part in the war. He did not want to fight. So Krishna is explaining that your action is actually inaction, because you act according to my desire. You act with this knowledge that you be detached. Now you will see the different qualities. Krishna will explain how you will not be bound. So that's the main point Krishna is trying to say here. Okay. A person acting in Krishna consciousness is intelligent. So that is the whole point. When a person, he performs activities in Krishna consciousness, then he is not bound by any reactions. This has to be understood properly. If you do not understand, that's why many people, they can't understand that you see the devotees in the Hare Krishna movement, they are driving car, they are going by aeroplane, they are using laptop, they are using cameras, they are using whatnot, all gadgets, everything they are using it in Krishna's service. This is the whole point, but people are not able to understand. You should become, you are a sadhu, means you should be completely silent, you should take mauna vrata, you should not speak, you should become totally inactive. But what is the goal of such an inactive action? By your inaction, you have to, actually why all the other processes are also there? Actually you have to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You have to understand that we are His part and parcel. We are meant to please Krishna. If we cannot come to this understanding, then our inaction will end up in some fruitive results, or we will be bound up. So that has to be understood. So whereas an action in Krishna consciousness is completely spiritual, it's got absolutely no reaction whatsoever. So that's why Krishna very clearly explained in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So this karma is actually it's leading to the transcendental knowledge. That's why you see the karma is there, and from karma one gets jnana when he is practicing sincerely. So that Prabhupada puts it in very simple terms. He says that when you engage in devotional service, you are no more bound by any reactions. So here that is being pointed out. So such a person is an intelligent person. A person acting in Krishna consciousness is naturally free from the bonds of karma. His activities are all performed for Krishna. Therefore, he does not enjoy or suffer any of the effects of work. Consequently, he is intelligent in human society, even though he is intelligent in all sorts of activities for Krishna. So he knows what he is doing. He knows exactly why he is acting in this way. For Krishna he will do any activity. He is not hesitant. So that is the point being made. Now Prabhupada is further pointing out in the purport. The impersonalist ceases fruitive activities out of fear, so that the resultant action may not be a stumbling block on the path of self-realization. But the personalist knows rightly his position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he will do anything for Krishna. He knows that my constitutional position is simply to serve the Lord. So whatever act I do for the Lord, I am not going to be bound by that. So he may take up any role. So Srila Prabhupada nicely concludes this purport with this point. The sense of eternal servitorship to Krishna makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of work. So what is the principle here? The principle is that this person is intelligent because he knows the connection with the Supreme Lord. So any act which is being done in connection with the Supreme Lord, it does not result in reaction. So that is the point. So there is in the Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, he quotes a verse from the Bhagavatam which explains, Vasam yatasad varga prachdendriya saratihi jnana vairagya rahitas tridandam upajivati suran atmanam atmastam nihmute mam cha dharmaha avipakva kashayosmad amushmat cha vihiyate. One who has not controlled the 6 forms of illusion, lust, anger, greed, excitement, false pride and intoxication, whose intelligence, the leader of the senses, is extremely attached to material things, who is bereft of knowledge and detachment, who adopts the sannyasa order of life to make a living, who denies the worshipable demigod, his own self, and the Supreme Lord within himself, thus ruining all religious principles, and who is still infected by material contamination, is deviated and is lost both in this life and the next. So that is why here Krishna, we can see in this verse, he discusses about the inaction in action, and then also action in inaction. Now I gave an example of Vishwamitra. We can see some other examples also. We can take the case of Prabhupada also quotes the example of a Pujari, who was a Brahmana, who actually uses the Shaligram. You think that he is a completely renounced person, very much fixed in transcendence. But what he is doing, his action, he is going to give heavy reactions. He is going to be suffering in hell forever. I guess use Shaligram to break the badam nuts. How offensive it is. Behind the screen, what the Pujari does, nobody knows. This is what he is doing. So that is very offensive. So that is what is being mentioned. Without proper, when you have taken up the role of a sadhu, and if you misuse it, your action will get heavy reactions. You will be bound up. Rather, when you engage properly in Krishna's service for the pleasure of action, you may deal with any modern gadgets as well. But if it is just used only for Krishna's service, absolutely no bondage. So this is the science. So that is why Krishna is pointing out here, a person who has this understanding is intelligent. When he does not have this understanding, he just tries to, he is very scared of using anything. He wants to completely withdraw himself from everything. So So that's where the whole problem is. That's why Krishna is calling such a person intelligent. Okay. And also that is, we can see in the 5th chapter, this same verse will be, we also saw in the 3rd chapter how Krishna begins the 3rd chapter that work in Krishna consciousness is actually not detrimental. It is same as renunciation, because the goal of both the process is to attain Krishna. So that is the whole process. So that's why it is being pointed out that Sankhya Yoga Pratak Balaha. So only the ignorance speak of karma and jnana to be different. So what was the point? Because karma, by the practice of karma yoga, it leads one to jnana. So that is understanding. And what is the proper understanding? The transcendental knowledge is Krishna is supreme, we are his eternal servants. And by our acts, our faith is further, acts in devotional service, our faith becomes even more strong and our understanding becomes clear. Okay, here is a quote from Srila Prabhupada's lecture. Very nice analogy Srila Prabhupada is giving. Please hear this. So this intelligent vision is recommended here by Krishna, that Sabuddhiman, anyone who is working and who can see such work, who can understand such work, Sabuddhiman Manushyeshu. The human society is very intelligent. He is very intelligent. Otherwise, sometimes bhakti, the devotional service of the Lord, just like, I will give you a crude example, just like a boy, he is flying kite and he is moving his reel containing the thread. Now from a distant place, you will find that he is moving his thread, but moving his reel, but sometimes moving his reel, he is getting down the kite, and moving his reel, he is getting higher and higher the kite. For those who have played with the kite, you know, from distance it's really difficult to figure out, you know, you just sometimes leave it and sometimes you pull it, from distance you can't see. So that Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that. Similarly, simply by seeing the movement of a person that he is also acting, that is not final judgment. We have to see what sort of acting he is doing. If he is acting in Krishna consciousness, if we can see a person is acting in Krishna consciousness, then we can understand that he is free from the reaction. And if he is acting in Krishna consciousness but externally from our material estimation, we can see that, oh, he is doing very good work, he is doing good work. Just like Arjuna, when he first refused to fight, that, my dear Krishna, it is not possible for me to fight with my relatives, brothers, I am not going to fight. But from material estimation, this conclusion, this decision of Krishna is very good. Very good. So materially, from material standpoint of view, that he is not going to commit non-violence. Violence, he is non-violent, he is very good man. So that's how people see. No? But from spiritual point of view, it is not so. From spiritual point of view, it is not so. So one has to see simply by external features that one is working and one is not working. That we cannot. What is the standard of work? Under what consciousness he is working? If he is working in material consciousness, then he is being bound up. However good may be that work, he is bound up. So this is the point. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Now Krishna is going to, Lord is going to elaborate on this aspect of how there is inaction in action, akarma in karma. Is it clear? So how by doing some activities, you are not going to be, you are not going to get further reactions. So this is going to explain the person who is in that consciousness and what are the qualities you will see with him, what are the symptoms you will see with him. In the next 5 verses he is going to explain that. Yasya sarve samarambha kama sankalpa varjitaha jnanagni dagda karmanam tam ahu panditang buddhaha. One is understood to be in full knowledge whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. We will see in the upcoming verses also in this chapter, Krishna is going to further speak on this topic. Jnanagni dhagda karmanam tam ahu panditang buddhaha. So by performing his activities simply for the pleasure of Krishna, what is happening? Everything, all the reactions of these activities are burned. So by that transcendental knowledge, by that jnana, what he is doing is performing activities for the pleasure of the Lord. So then, no more reactions. So he is burning no more reactions. Krishna will further explain this. So let's see the purport what Prabhupada further explains. Because the person in Krishna consciousness is devoid of all kinds of sense gratificatory propensities, it is to be understood that he has burned up the reactions of his work by perfect knowledge of his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the whole point. In fact, we can see in all the purports, this main point is so much stressed that the moment we realize that we are eternal servants of Krishna, then our activities, our body, mind, words, all our actions are dovetailed in Krishna's service. Because we are part of the Supreme. So we are meant to please the Supreme. So this is the understanding, and this understanding one gets by the mercy of a pure devotee. So then what happens? All his actions are no more done for the pleasure of his own senses, but he does it for the pleasure of the Lord's senses. So that is the very important philosophical understanding. That's why Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, he very clearly establishes in many of his works, and also in his songs, he has very clearly mentioned this. Jeev Krishna Das, E Vishwas, Korna Toyar Dhukonoi. Just by knowing that we are eternal servants of Krishna, then what happens? As a result, all our difficulties, all our sufferings, everything becomes null and void. We are just become totally free, and we are in bliss actually by getting to know that we are eternal servants of Krishna. So that's why this Bhagavad Gita is such a powerful message. It brings us completely out of the mode of ignorance. We are in the slumber of Maya, and it brings us to active stage of being engaged in Krishna's service, knowing his supreme position and our eternal relationship with him. Okay. Development of this knowledge of eternal servitorship to the Lord is compared to fire. Such a fire, once kindled, can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. So that is the whole point. So when somebody takes up the process of Krishna consciousness, everything, his whole aspect, his whole worldview towards various activities in this world, it completely changes. He becomes immune to all the reactions. Okay, let's proceed further. So I explained to you before that further Krishna also will speak about the same topic of how by this transcendental knowledge all the reactions are burnt. We will see in the verses 36 to 37, Krishna so much glorifies about this transcendental knowledge. How this transcendental knowledge it can totally burn up all the reactions. And also we can see people when they take up Srila Prabhupada's books, we can see our own experience in ISKCON, until he has come in touch with this message of this transcendental Hare Krishna movement, people's lives before were horrible. They are engaged in all kinds of sinful, abominable activities. But then, just by having come in touch with this transcendental message of Krishna consciousness, they become totally purified. All the gross material desires to enjoy this material world, to exploit others, everything is burnt up. He becomes, he wants to just be a simple servant in Krishna's mission. And that we could visibly see with our eyes how changes have happened. And this is one of the powerful effect of practice of Krishna consciousness. That's why when Krishna says in the Gita, it is very true. Pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam susukam kartam avyayam. So we can quote various pramanas from various scriptures and several incidents in the past. All those things are great. It is required, it is appreciated. But when we see someone right in front of our eyes, how he was before and how he is now because of this transcendental knowledge and how he has completely changed himself, this is something mind-blowing. And it is so amazing, one becomes amazed what is the power of Krishna consciousness. Just we heard in the previous chapter that even a person in the old age, by the power of Krishna consciousness, he can develop pure love of God. So soul is eternal and Krishna consciousness is very powerful. So that is the point conveyed here. Okay, let's go to text 20. Tyaktva karma pala sangam nitya tripto nirashrayah karman abhipravrittopi naiva kinchit karoti saha. Abandoning all attachments to the results of his activities. Tyaktva karma pala sangam. No more attached to the results. Nitya tripto nirashrayah. Ever satisfied and independent. Fully satisfied. And is not depending on anything else apart from the Supreme Lord. Karman abhipravrittopi naiva kinchit karoti saha. So, by he is engaged in activities, he performs no fruitive action. His action is not giving him any fruits. He is not bound by the reactions. All they engage in all kinds of undertakings. So this is the point. You see, as we explained before, Krishna is now elaborating on this point. You engage in activity, but with this consciousness. What is the consciousness? The consciousness is that you become detached from the results of activities. You do it for the Supreme Lord. You take up any service that we get. We should give our heart. We should give 100%. So sometimes we may get good results, sometimes we may not get good results. So we should not be carried away by that. We should still do it with full enthusiasm, because it is ordained by Guru, it is ordained by Krishna, and it is always auspicious to engage in these activities. So devotees, when they go out for book distribution, they have this experience. Someday, so many books within first 15 minutes, some days for 7 hours, hardly any books distributed. But nevertheless, you carry the mission of the order that is given to us. So when we are fixed in that situation, and when we engage in service in that spirit, then we are not at all bound by the reactions. So this is what Krishna is explaining. So Krishna is explaining about the quality of a person who is practicing, how he is approaching his various activities. Okay. The Krishna conscious person acts out of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he has no attraction for the results of the actions. This is such a nice point. You see, we already heard this point in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita also. We will see again and again Prabhupada repeating this point. So we can understand that this is the key. When you develop higher taste, okay, when you develop higher taste, all the lower tendencies goes away. And it is possible to develop this higher taste in the association of pure devotees. And we will see Srila Prabhupada also pointing out, reminding us again and again how we can come to this stage. So, you see, he loses all the attraction for the petty things. And we can see sometimes, in our own life also, sometimes we have, and those who have gone through the college days and school days, we could see sometimes, we can see always we have some kind of friends who are, sometimes they are like, in the local language you say dadas, dada means like he's a kind of, rowdy, or in the whole team, he's some big fellow, he will dress in a very funny way, or he will talk, he will control everyone. And sometimes we have experienced, we have seen, so such kind of person who is always dominating, whose behavior is very strange and pattern, suddenly, he comes one day with, very properly dressed, very nice in behavior, talks very gentle, so nice in dealings. You're wondering what is going on, what's happening, and then we see there is an intervention of the Stri Shakti in his life. He saw a girl, and then girl didn't like his particular traits, and completely he becomes transformed person. How is that? So that's the power. So I'm just giving this, the example will look very little crude, but see, he has given up all his traits, everything he has given up, but the taste is something else. But actually, if you see in Krishna consciousness, when one takes up association of a advanced devotee, and when he just gives himself in this process of Krishna consciousness, and then he sincerely practices, then gradually over a period of time we can see such a transformation. He has given up so many nonsense things that he has done before in his practice. Everything he has given up. How it done? This is the mercy of the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Total transformation. So that's what here you see. This is a very interesting point that Srila Prabhupada points out here, that he loses all the attraction for the petty things because he has developed the love for the Supreme Lord. So this is our process. We may not be in that stage, but it is guaranteed. If we stick to the process given by our acharyas, as Srila Prabhupada has given us, we will be able to develop the taste. Okay. So our actions will not bind us. He is not even attached to his personal maintenance, for everything is left to Krishna. Nor is he anxious to secure things, nor to protect things already in his possession. He does his duty to the best of his ability and leaves everything to Krishna. So now this also has to be understood. This shows about the advanced devotee, how he is not worried about his personal maintenance. We can see in the scriptures examples of great personalities. We can take the example of Madhavendra Puri, who was completely dependent on the Supreme Lord. He was not depending on anything. During his travels, wherever he stayed, even for the food, we could see the advanced devotees, how they are behaving, what is their characteristics. And is also mentioned that he is not so much worried about his possession. He is very much concerned, whatever that is given by the Lord, he is just using it in the Lord's service. So that's how it is. And also for practicing sadhakas, we can appreciate this great quality, and also we should be very careful in dealing with the property of Krishna. We could also see in the lives of great personalities, although personally they are not interested to enjoy the property or enjoy the possessions, but they know everything it is in relation with Krishna. So sometimes there is an incident that happened during Srila Bhakti-śāstra Saraswati time. When Srila Bhakti-śāstra Saraswati Thakur, when he was in the mutt, one day morning he gave a class on renunciation, on tyaga. So much he spoke about how we have to be renounced, how we should not be attached to any small thing. Everything should be used in Krishna's service. So like that he explained, and the Matvasis, Brahmacharis, Sannyasis, they were also inspired. Yeah, you have to be so renounced and like that. Then in the evening time or something like that, he was writing. He was working on his books. So from distance he saw that there is, in the kitchen godown was there, some 2 monkeys. It just came in and then it was trying to take 2 bananas from the godown. So Bhakti-śāstra Saraswati Thakur, from far distance, he took a stick. Such a effulgent personality, very grave. He just went with 2 sticks, trying to beat those monkeys, and he was so much trying, and somehow or other, the monkeys, how they are, they escaped with those 2 bananas. Then Bhakti-śāstra Saraswati Thakur felt very bad. Oh, 2 bananas which was kept for Krishna's service, it is sent by the Lord and it is gone. So then some of the disciples couldn't understand. Wanting so much you said about tyag, it should not be possessions, we have to be very detached. Then Bhakti-śāstra Saraswati Thakur explained, yes, that is the situation, but anything that is there for Krishna's service, it should be used properly in Krishna's service. It should not be neglected. So we may have possessions. So we have practice. We have so many instruments. We have cars. We have various other instruments in various service. But we take great care to use it properly in Krishna's service. Otherwise, we are not so much possessive about using things for our own sense gratification. But for Krishna, we take utmost care. We try to find the best of everything for Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So that should be the spirit. That should be understood properly. So Srila Prabhupada further points out, such an unattached person is always free from the resultant reactions of good and bad. It is as though we were not doing anything. This is the sign of akarma, or actions without fruitive reactions. Okay, let's continue. Text 21. Nirashiryata chittatma tyakta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvannapnoti kilbisham. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled. Chittatma, he has perfectly controlled his mind and senses. Tyakta sarva parigraha, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions. Shariram kevalam karma, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Kurvan napnoti kilbisham. So again, here it is mentioned that what further happens, he is not bound by any sinful reactions, it is mentioned. So here in this particular purport, Srila Prabhupada gives a nice analogy. He explains about how the mind and intelligence are properly controlled by not thinking oneself to be the controller, and how everything is under his control. So Srila Prabhupada gives an analogy. When the hand moves, it does not move out of his own accord, but by the endeavor of the whole body. So that means what? We may do some activities, we may perform so many services. If we think that I am doing it, it is my ability. We may be talented also, we may be very proficient in some service. But what is the Vaishnava understanding? What is the proper understanding? How does the Vaishnava look at it? Any thoughts? How does he look at it? He performs some phenomenal feats in Krishna's service. So how does he look at it? Oh yeah, you see, at last he understood my glory.
I'm just an instrument.
Yes, so that is one point. He understands that he is an instrument in Krishna's service. And yeah, he understands that he is an instrument in Krishna's service. Guru has given me an opportunity to engage in this service, and it is all his mercy. It's not just you speak it for the sake of just being humble, saying a few words. No, that is a reality. If you see, Krishna has given all the strength, Krishna has given all the energy, he has given us the intelligence also. From our side, our free will should be dovetailed in his service. This is the whole point. And when we properly utilize our talent and energy in Krishna's service, then it becomes perfect. And we recognize also, it's all by his mercy I am doing it, it's all by the mercy of Guru. And when there is something messes up, we mess up with something goes wrong, then we identify that it was my mess, I didn't use it properly, I was not thoughtful. That is how we look at it. And then he is in perfect consciousness. So here Prabhupada gives an example of that. Although the hand may say that I moved it, but actually because of the endeavor of the body. Because it is part of the body, the hand is doing. Nice simple analogy, but yet very profound. A Krishna conscious person is always dovetailed with the supreme desire, for he has no desire for personal sense gratification. He moves exactly like a part of a machine. As a machine part requires oiling and cleaning for maintenance, so a Krishna conscious man maintains himself by his work, just to remain fit for action in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So this also shows the simplicity. He wants to keep himself very simple. He keeps himself always vigilant by regularly hearing, by engaging in service. So that's required, right? Like in this analogy, look at it. Requires oiling and cleaning for maintenance, some part. So like that, he is also always ready, always in this consciousness that Gopi Bhritya Padakamalayur Dasa Dasanudas, always understands himself. Whenever these thoughts of controllership or because being in some position or being in some lording over nature is trying to overtake him, he immediately, with the transcendental knowledge, cuts that apart. This is for those sadhakas, but those who are in the higher stages of Krishna consciousness, for them there is no question of such thought. Always they identify themselves as eternal servants. So that is what is being discussed here. These are those great devotees whose thoughts are always with the understanding of their eternal servants of Krishna, and all credit they give it for the Supreme Lord. Okay, here is another example Prabhupada is pointing out here. He says, he is therefore immune to all the reactions of his endeavors. Like an animal, he has no proprietorship even over his own body. A cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession. Yet the animal does not protest, nor does it have any real independence. You see here, the high standard is given. High standard means this is how practicing a Krishna conscious person who is practicing Krishna consciousness, this is how he should be. This consciousness should rise to this level. So that is why you see very clearly those who are specifically, I'm just saying, for anybody who has accepted the process of Krishna consciousness, who has surrendered his life in the service of his Guru, this should be the mood that he should be ready to give himself to the instructions of his Guru. So understanding everything as his Guru's possession. So what is the understanding when we stay in the ashram? So now I am staying in the house of the Guru. It's not my room, my house, my place. It is actually Guru has given me this place. So that is why this shloka also is very much required. Right from engage, being in Gurukul, we get this training. Brahmachari Gurukulai Vasan Dantor Guror Hitam. Acharan Dasavan Nicho Guru Sudhrida Sahurudam. This should be understood properly. If this verse is understood properly, then our attitude will be proper. So what is the attitude? A disciple or the student in the Gurukul, what he does, he controls his senses and mind voluntarily. For what? For pleasing the Guru. So this is the first principle. When he enters the ashram, this is what he understands. So this is what I need to do. I should control my senses and mind. And for what? For pleasing the spiritual master. And he is interested, always ready to hear the instructions, always ready to follow the instructions. So he is in the spirit. And you see in this, specifically Srila Prabhupada's translation of this verse, you can see, Dasavan Acharan Nicho, it is mentioned. So Dasavan means he takes a very humble position of a servant. And Prabhupada translates, in the translation you can see, it's like a slave, it is mentioned. Somebody may someone who reads this, they say, oh, you see, this is too much, actually, what is this? But that's how the whole training is given in the parampara. The disciple means he should be like a slave. So it is not any exaggeration, that's how it is. So that's and we can also know in those days how the disciples were. The disciples, they will be in the ashram of the Guru, and they will be engaging in all the service. So whenever the Guru calls him for honoring prasadam, he will come. So he will bring all the sticks for the yajna and everything. And the Guru sometimes can forget you to call you for lunch, and then you go somewhere else and then take. No, you fast that day, that's it. That's how it is, that's the standard. I'm just trying to relate this example to show what was the great standard that was there in the Vedic process or in the process of Krishna consciousness. So the same principle is still valid. Not that we just right royally get initiated and then impose our own ideas and become possessive of our own conceptions and then push the Guru to accommodate our ideas. So that should not be the idea. So you can see Prabhupada is pointing out, a cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession, yet the animal does not protest, nor does it have any real independence. Again, another high standard that is set by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you think of a verse in Bhakti-śāstra which speaks about this mood, any thought on that? Yeah, it's a very powerful, very high level of devotion. Asnishyava padaratam pinashtumam adarshana marmahatam karotuva. Yada tatava vidadhatu lampato mad prana natastu sa eva naparaha. So here it is mentioned that whatever, whether the gopis are Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is expressing that this is the mood of the gopis, whether you embrace me or you make me broken hearted, one day you show affection to me, one day you totally reject me. Nevertheless, whatever may be the situation, you are my master birth after birth. It is a very high platform, and for us, we should know what is a high platform, and we are working. We should try to work in these directions. It's so important. We are in a very beginning stage. For anything small, any small thing that happens, we become completely disturbed, become angered, and we want to leave Krishna consciousness. But you see, this is what the acharyas are asking us to raise ourselves to. So we are seeing the great qualities of the pure devotee that is mentioned here. So he becomes completely free from the sense of proprietorship because of that. Okay, let's continue. Okay, text 22. Yadrichalava santushto dvandva tito vimatsaraha samasiddhava siddhaucha kritvapi nanibadhyate. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. Now here Krishna is again pointing out another quality, that not endeavoring too much for whatever that edricha labha santushto. So whatever that comes on its own accord. We do endeavor, we perform. Whatever that we get, we are satisfied with that. Not that you make too much endeavor for some facilities, for some arrangements. So yadricha labha santushto. So and dvandva tito vimatsaraha. Again another quality is mentioned here. Dvandva tito means he becomes free from dualities. Yes, material world means dualities. Material world means it is rest assured that there is going to be some problems that is going to come on the way, and after some time there is going to be some joyful moments. So a person who is in knowledge, he can see that. So that's why he doesn't become too jubilant when some favorable situation happens to him in his life. And he does not become very morose also when reversals happens to him in his life, because he knows this is the nature of this material world. As long as we are going to be in this body, as long as we are going to be in this material world, this is how we are going to face reactions. So that's why now we have this problem of corona, and then that's devotee has understanding. Okay, today corona, tomorrow something else, tomorrow some other tsunami, something else is going. Material world is going to be like this. So we are not working so hard to fix these dualities. Whatever is required, whatever is minimal required, we work on it, and then what is our main focus of our activity? Our main focus is on Krishna consciousness. Our main focus is on our parodharma. And other whatever that comes on the way, we deal with it. It's not that we are totally we become neglectful of it. Yeah, we deal with the situation and then we focus on our prime activity of Krishna consciousness. So, and then another quality is being mentioned here, vimatsaraha. He does not become envious. Also this point is repeated again and again, sama siddhau asiddhaucha. So he becomes equipoised in success or failure. So when a person acts like this, what is the result of it? He doesn't become kritvapi na nibadhyate. He does not become entangled. Okay. Srila Prabhupada points out that he neither begs nor borrows, but he labors honestly as far as in his power and is satisfied with whatever is obtained by his own honest labor. You see, there is another quality. So maybe for Krishna, he may go for the Lord's service. He will go and then beg. He will perform. Somebody may even curse him. Somebody may even make a mockery of him. But whatever is required for Krishna, he will be ready to do. But for his personal sense gratification, for his personal situation, he will not. Whatever comes on the way, he will take it up. He will not make special endeavors for that. And you remember that the mood was, in the Bhakti-śāstra Vaibhav, it is mentioned how devotees were in the Gaudiya Math, how they used to, for the sake of the service of the Lord, they will use the facilities. They may even go by car to bring donation for Krishna and everything, but for their own personal things, they may not do it. They may, there are devotees, when they go to the medical shop, they will just go by walk. So they said, why I should waste Krishna's energy? So like that. So I am just giving this example to relate that anything for personal, they are not so interested, but anything to do with Krishna's service, they will use everything that is required to please the Lord. So, and also whatever that comes whatever that Krishna has provided, they will be happy with that. And also that's one of the training a devotee gets in Brahmacharya ashram. So that also we have this experience when you are in the traveling Sankirtan party, or when you are in Padayatra, or even very much when you stay in the ashram, you can see that it is all happening by Krishna's mercy. The dependency on Krishna can be seen when one is in proper knowledge. The food that we get, the shelter that we have got, the association that we have got, it is all the mercy of the Lord. That's how a devotee looks at it. And in certain situations it will be very visible. We do not know what is going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow, we have the experience of devotees in the Hare Krishna movement, how they did not have, hardly they had any money, and they do not know how to even pay the rent the next day. So what is they were depending on Krishna, but they were doing their work, they were sincerely working for Krishna, and Krishna provides, Krishna sends. Many amazing, miraculous things happened in the movement. There are so many stories when we just read. So that's why it is very important for us to, apart from reading Bhagavatam, apart from reading Bhagavad Gita, we should also see the history of various lives of great acharyas. And also we should also know the history of ISKCON, how so many devotees, by their hard work, by their great struggle, by their dependence on Krishna, and totally with great faith taking the words of Srila Prabhupada, the movement has come up to this much. So many, we are all actually reaping the results of the hard work of the great devotees. That's why we are today sitting and discussing and speaking, because so much hard work they did, and they were all in this mood. Honestly, they engage in Krishna's service. So that is the whole point. Srila Prabhupada further concludes the purport. A Krishna conscious person is above duality because he does not hesitate to act in any way for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, he is steady both in success and in failure. So he nevertheless, in whatever may be the situation, he continues with the service of the Lord. At the same time, he is also thoughtful where to invest energy, where not to invest energy. But if some apparent, if the result is not very favorable, still he is enthusiastic because he has taken his efforts in Krishna's service. So he continues like that. Okay, let's continue. Text 23. Gata sangasya muktasya jnana vastita chetasah yajnayat charata karma samagrang praviliyate. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. So it is mentioned here that yajnayat charata karma samagrang praviliyate. So now this is the point. Here it is explained that because he is free from the three modes of material nature, he is not affected by the dualities. All his activities are done for the pleasure of the Lord. Now what is happening here, we already heard in the 3rd chapter, verse number 9, when actions are done for the pleasure of Krishna, what is that called? Yajna. Yes. So that yajna, by that yajna, what is the result? Then he is not bound by the reactions. So here it is being pointed out that so when one acts in this way, then he is actually merged into transcendence. He enters transcendence. So what is this? Krishna is going to explain further in the upcoming verses. We will discuss that. So that is what here again Krishna is discussing on the topic of yajna. So performing actions for the pleasure of the Lord. So if you see in the previous chapter is karma yoga, which is when the actions are done for the pleasure of the Lord, so that becomes yajna, and by that yajna one is fixed in the transcendental knowledge. So that is the whole point. So from when we are not sufficiently purified and when we engage in karma, then what happens? Then one gets the proper knowledge. So samagrang praviliyate. So let's now Krishna is going to explain what is this yajna. Further he is going to explain that. So it has been stated in the previous verse that one should perform actions for the purpose of yajna. So now what type of yajna is this? So this is now being discussed. Brahmarpanam brahmahavir brahmagnau brahmanahutam brahmaivatena gantavyam brahmakarma samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. Now we came to the very important verse. Finally we got it. Everything is Brahman. Everything is merged into transcendence. So this is how the Mayavadis may interpret it. For them this is an important verse. They say that everything is finally Brahman. Sarvam kalau idam Brahman. Yes, it's true. Upanishadic statement. It is certainly true. Everything is Brahman, no doubt about it. But now it has to be understood very clearly. What is Krishna trying to say here? That everything becomes spiritualized when we engage in Krishna's service, whatever the act, the very performance of that act, the ingredients we use in that act, the person who is involved in that act, the result which is offered to someone in that act, everything becomes spiritualized. This is the main point of this verse to be understood. It's not that we become Brahman, not that we are merged in transcendence means we become one with God. No. The point is that the individuality exists, our eternal relationship as servant, that is continuing, but everything becomes spiritualized. Before, we have not seen the spiritual aspect of everything in connection with Krishna, but after having engaged it in Krishna's service, everything is spiritualized. Now you will see Srila Prabhupada exactly is discussing this point. Okay. So Prabhupada here, he gives the example of a patient. Okay, let's see that example. For example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of the bonds due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely yogurt. Now, why this example is given? Now, we can see here, we are in this material world. Material world is contaminated with material atmosphere. So our consciousness it goes down. So what is one kind of spiritual aspirants? What they try to do? They want to cut off totally from this material world. They want to stop their activities. They don't want to no way they want to relate to this material world. But here an example is given how a patient when he drinks milk, then the dysentery increases or the diarrhea increases. But the yogurt, which is also come out from the milk, when it is administered as a medicine. So similarly, this material world, although it is binding, it makes us forget about Krishna. But if we use all the objects in this material world, in fact, see the material world also as the energy of the Lord, and use it in Krishna's service, then it becomes spiritualized. So actually, we have many times heard Srila Prabhupada also saying that there is actually one energy. We say spiritual energy and material energy. Actually everything is spiritual. But when we see it in separate from Krishna, then we start identifying it as material. Now we will see Prabhupada deals with that in this purport. The word Brahma means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual and the rays of His transcendental body are called Brahma Jyoti, spiritual effulgence. Everything that exists is situated in that Brahma Jyoti. But when the Jyoti is covered by illusion, Maya or sense gratification, it is called material. Are you getting this point here? See, nicely Prabhupada is putting it. And you see further he says, this material wheel can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. You see? Now we see everything, whatever that is there in this world, not in relationship with Krishna. Then that is Maya. The moment we see everything in relation with Krishna, then the same object which will act as a Maya becomes spiritualized. Are you able to follow this point? This is an important point in this purport. This is our philosophy also. We see everything in relationship with Krishna. So that's why the whole philosophy of Yukta Vairagya is also there. We use it in Krishna's service, then that becomes spiritualized. Otherwise, that is the difference between a personalist and an impersonalist. Impersonalist completely, in the name of renunciation, he totally cuts off everything as Maya because he gets bound up. But a devotee's understanding is very clear, seeing that in relation. Utility is the principle. That's why Srila Prabhupada said. He knows how to use it. Use everything in Krishna's service. So, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir. So this, I have made this point from the verse, I have just wrote this. Same, whatever is there in the purport, same point is, thus the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness. So we can see that whatever that action is performed, it is done for the sake of the Supreme Lord. The consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor and the result are all combined together. Brahman or the absolute truth. So what does that mean? So for example, the one who is offering some donation for the progress of this Krishna consciousness movement, or we are trying to build a temple now, someone is offering a donation, someone is receiving a donation, someone is using the donation properly in Krishna's service. Everyone is spiritualized. The person who has given the donation, he is spiritualized. The person who has accepted it and the person who is using it properly in Krishna, everyone is spiritualized. So this is the understanding here. So Prabhupada concludes the purport. The process of the absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. You see how nicely he is putting it. Absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter docile for the cause of the absolute truth regains its spiritual quality. So that's why we see matter can become, you can see immediately matter can be spiritualized. That's the whole point. It can be spiritualized by engaging it in Krishna's service. So we have no problem using anything you give, we will use it in Krishna's service. Srila Prabhupada, what he used to do, there was, of course, you can see sometimes this renunciance. There is one big, one so-called big guru from Bengal who claimed himself to be he claimed himself to be a Bhagwan. He used to do in those days that, and somebody is offering, money, trying to come in and give money or something to him. No, it seems his hands will withdraw. He makes such a drama that hands will withdraw. And the people were speaking, oh, he's such a sadhu, his hands is withdrawing completely, very, very powerful person. Then Srila Prabhupada actually knew about this. He used to say that when someone comes in and gives good amount of money, Srila Prabhupada, I will raise my hand. I will take it and I will put it back and again I will raise my hand. So this is the understanding. No problem. Everything becomes spiritualized. He can use it in Krishna's service. He will take so much money, everything will be used in Krishna's service. So that is the whole point. So it should not be misunderstood. So here Prabhupada is concluding, in that condition of spiritual consciousness, the contributor, the contribution, the consumption, the performer or leader of the performance and the result or ultimate gain, everything becomes one in the absolute, the supreme Brahman. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. So what do we do? So we can also see, take a simple example of the whole process of this yajna. Yajna kunda is there, the person who is performing the yajna is there, the samit is there, the ghee is there, and the whole yajna is performed for the spiritual elevation. So everything becomes spiritualized, the whole atmosphere becomes spiritualized. And another thing, I'm just relating one more thing. So what is the best yajna that could be done? That everything, whole atmosphere, everything could be spiritualized. Complete spiritualization is possible by the whole process of the Sankirtana yajna that is given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very mercifully, he has given the Sankirtana yajna. Anyone from any situation, from any background, in any circumstances, if he is engaging in this powerful chanting of this Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, he can come out from the slumber of Maya. If somebody is in sleepy stage, he becomes completely awakened by this chanting of this holy name. So powerful, it can totally destroy all the ignorance. This is the power of the Mahamantra. Okay, let's now continue. Text 25. Daivam eva pare yajnam yogina paryupasate brahmagnau apare yajnam yajnaivo pajuhvati. Now here Krishna is explaining, now he has explained that everything should be come to the level of yajna, and by this process of yajna everything can be spiritualized. Now there are so many different people in different ashrama, people who are following different paths. So but then everyone has to engage in one particular activity. That activity is sacrifice. So we know also, we have been again and again hearing this point, that Vedas means yajna, Vedas means sacrifice. So why this sacrifice is given? Also we heard that by that sacrifice, gradually there is a purification of heart that happens, and then he comes to the proper transcendental knowledge. Okay, now there are different people, some of them are worshippers of demigods, some of them are worshippers of impersonalists, some of them are worshippers of the universal form, but nevertheless everyone is engaged in some kind of sacrifice. So without that sacrifice, you can't make progress. So now Krishna is now going to speak about different personalities who are engaged in different sacrifice. That is this whole section. Next 8 verses are going to deal with that. So when you don't understand this, the background behind this, it may appear a little confusing, but it's easy you can understand that. This is what Krishna is discussing, that of different practitioners and what are their different practice and how they are engaged in yajna. This is the whole concept in this going to be explained in the next 8 verses. Okay. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the supreme Brahman. Now here in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is discussing about how varieties of sacrifices are done, and how some of them are, by that varieties of sacrifice, gradually they come to transcendence, gradually they come to the transcendental knowledge. So I hope some of you did the homework of reading the purports. If you have not read, please go through these purports. I am not going to go through all the sections, so it is your responsibility. I cannot read for you, you have to read. Okay, thank you. All the different varieties of sacrifice can be placed within two primary divisions, namely sacrifice of worldly possessions and sacrifice in pursuit of transcendental knowledge. So we will see what is this all about. So one is giving everything for the Lord, one's possessions, and also performing austerities to gain transcendental knowledge. Is Krishna is discussing. Those who are in the Krishna conscious sacrifice or Krishna consciousness sacrifice all material possessions for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, while others who want some temporary material happiness sacrifice their material possessions to satisfy demigods such as Indra, the sun god, etc. And others who are impersonalists sacrifice their identity by merging into the existence of impersonal Brahman. So what is the point here? The point is that different worshippers, according to their different desires, they do sacrifice, but their sacrifice leads them up to some extent. But sacrifice is there, yajna is there, because this is the process to be followed. But if you follow this process, what will happen? What will be the result of it? Purification. That's the whole point. So you cannot avoid sacrifice. You see, the same theme is being maintained right from the 3rd chapter. Krishna is pushing. You have to sacrifice. You can't just lead whimsical life. You can't lead life in an independent way. You have to accept the system that is created by the Lord. Somehow or other, if you come into the Krishna's fold, Krishna's system, then you will gradually go up. That is the whole point. And if someone is intelligent, he takes up to this process of Krishna consciousness. Then rapid progress. So Krishna is speaking about the different worshippers of different demigods, the impersonalist worshippers, and how they are, by their sacrifice, they are. So here Prabhupada is giving a hint. So such impersonalist sacrifice their time in philosophical speculation to understand the transcendental nature of the Supreme. In other words, the fruity workers sacrifice their material possessions for material enjoyment, whereas the impersonalist sacrifices material designations with a view to merging into the existence of the Supreme. So the Krishna conscious person like Arjuna, however, sacrifices everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, and thus all his material possessions as well as his own self, everything is sacrificed for Krishna. Thus he is the first class yogi, but he does not lose his individual existence. So here Srila Prabhupada in this verse also he is pointing out that how he is showing the contrast of a Krishna conscious person. He is showing how different, as in the verse it is explained, Bahu Ishwaravadi, Jnani, the Devata worshippers, how they are all attaining different status, but how a Krishna conscious person, Pranair, Arthair, Diya, Vacha, Shreyaha, Acharanam Sada. Bhagavatam explains this in the 10th canto. No, this is how, he is giving everything in the Lord's service, and then by that sacrifice, he purifies himself. Okay, text 26. Shotradin indriyanyanye samyamagnishu jugvati Shabdadin Vishayan Anya Indriyagnishu Jugvati. So now Krishna is speaking about those who are brahmacharis and those who are householders, how they engage in sacrifice. Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice their hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. So Krishna has already explained about the varnas and the ashramas, and also Prabhupada gives introduction why there are 4 varnas and 4 ashramas in this purport, and now he is pointing the how the brahmacharis are engaged in this practice. The brahmacharis are students under the care of a bona fide spiritual master, control the mind by abstaining from sense gratification. A brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is the basic principle for understanding, and therefore the pure brahmachari engages fully in Harer Namanu Kirtanam, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. He restrains himself from the vibrations of material sounds, and his hearing is engaged in the transcendental sound vibration of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So that is being stressed here. Now we need to understand one thing. This process of restraining the senses and the mind, that is there for all the ashramas. Now we should think that only for brahmacharis it is there. No, it's for everyone. Brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa. Specifically in the brahmachari training, this is the focus. He is made submissive. That's why you see the training begins by control of the senses and the mind. Independence is curtailed. He acts for the pleasure of the Guru. And his ears are always open. That's why it is mentioned, Shrotrayan Indriyan Anye. So his ears are open to hear the instructions of the Guru. That means whatever transcendental instructions are coming, he is always vigilant, always active to hear. So and he should be always enthusiastic to participate in this process of Krishna Katha. You should be ready to participate in the Kirtan, you should be ready for preaching, you should be ready for any instruction that is given in Krishna's service. So then he will be able to make proper progress. He will be able to purify in that particular ashrama. Same thing is mentioned here. Again for the householders, how they engage. There also, so there are two things. No, one is a Naishtika brahmachari. Another, even the householders are called as brahmacharis. No? They are called Upakurvana brahmacharis. They are also controlling the senses and mind. How Prabhupada is pointing out here. Similarly, the householders who have some license for sense gratification perform such acts with great restraint. Sex life, intoxication and meat eating are general tendencies of human society, but the regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. Marriage on the principles of religious life is therefore current in all civilized human society, because that is a way of restricted sex life. This restricted unattached sex life is also a kind of yajna, because the restricted householder sacrifices general tendency towards sense gratification for higher transcendental life. So this is the point. So devotees in Krishna consciousness movement, so they are also sacrificing the family people, grihasthas. So they lead life according to the instructions of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. They don't act whimsically. So there is no question of discussion. You know, sometimes some people think, oh, my Siksha Guru gave me permission, and so where is the question of not regulation in Krishna consciousness? There is no, this is not the regulation. Regulation is, as Krishna explains, dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. Recently we were hearing, a week back, how His Holiness Bhakti Swami was explaining in the class that how the devotee or the Brahmana, how he engages in the procreation as a dharmic act, not out of sense gratification and trying to enjoy and like that, but it is a dharma. I have to the progeny is required to expand. So rather he is praying for a good Krishna conscious soul to come in the family, so that he will be part of the mission of Krishna consciousness. So this is how the family people are engaged in Krishna's service, and they dedicate their body, mind and words. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his song, he says, Manasa deho geho jo kichumor arpilutva pade nanda kishore. So he says that my manasa deho, my body, my senses, my wife, my children, everyone I engage in Krishna's service. So that's how the householders are purified. So the process of purification is there, the sacrifice is there. So without sacrifice we cannot make progress. So everyone in different ashram, they engage in sacrifice in accordance with the instructions of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So then we can see whichever ashram he is in. Sthane sthite shrutigitan tanuvan manobhir. Brahma says that whatever may be your position, wherever you are, grihe tako, vane tako, sada hari bole rago, you engage in the sacrifice of this Sankirtana Yajna, then you will make progress. So here it is very clearly mentioned how one has to deal with the sex life with proper understanding. Okay. Text 27. Sarvan indriya karmani prana karmani chapare atma sanyamas yogagno jugvati jnana deepite. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. So how fortunate we are to be in this Krishna consciousness movement by taking the process of pure devotional service. We don't have to go through all the other processes of we will read here about Pratyagatma, Paragatma, how the pranas are controlled by the Ashtanga Yoga system. Even when we hear, sometimes the head spins. But where to question where is the question of practicing it in Kali Yuga? It's so difficult. We hear when we read the section in the Dhruva Maharaj section how he controlled his body and senses. In 6 months he performed heavy tapasya one by one. Once I was doing a Tamil class, so I was just reading. So he said first month he controlled like this, and I said, Prabhu, we'll stop at the first month, Prabhu. I don't want to proceed further. Now it is a difficult process, but that process people were capable, and Dhruva was a great devotee. He did that, but you can see in the purports, Srila Prabhupada, he was again and again he'll be emphasizing. So that is possible in those ages, but this is the process of Krishna consciousness, of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, controlling senses and mind, honoring only Krishna Prasadam. That process is a easier process, and you get the most powerful effect by this process. So I'm just giving you a background before you're getting into this process, how it is mentioned, how the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, it's giving various processes. Okay. Now Srila Prabhupada in his purport, it defines what is Pratyag Atma and Parag Atma. As long as the soul is attached to sense enjoyment, it is called Parag Atma. But as soon as the same soul becomes detached from such sense enjoyment, it is called Pratyag Atma. So two things are there. One, when we are attached to the senses, and then when we are detached from the senses. Okay. Now what is actually happening here in this purport, you can see Prabhupada is speaking about how the yogi, he withdraws his senses from the different sense objects. That is what is being discussed, and you can see how the different vayus, apana vayu, vyana vayu, samana vayu, udana vayu, how these different vayus which are engaged in the movement of the senses with the sense objects, different bodily movements are controlled by these vayus, and these vayus are controlled. How it is controlled for what? It is controlled so that gradually you detach yourself from the matter. So that is the principle. And by this process, what these yogis they do? They engage in sacrifice. So this is what Krishna is pointing out here. Okay. Now let's continue the next verse. Text 28. Dravya yajñas tapo yajña yoga yajñas tata pare swadhyaya jnana yajñascha yatayas samshita vrataha. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. Krishna here speaks now of further sacrifices performed by again some of the categories of different practitioners. Now he begins with Dravya Yajna. In the purport you can see, Prabhupada immediately points out there are some people who are interested in doing charity. What kind of charity? He nicely mentions it here. In India, the rich mercantile community or princely orders open various kinds of charitable institutions like Dharmashala, Annakshetra, Atitishala, Anathalaya and Vidyapita. Now, so these are the common things which some of the people are into. Their level of consciousness is to that extent that somehow they want to sacrifice their funds or their accumulation of money. They want to sacrifice it for these kind of charitable activities. So that is one performance of yajna. That is dravya yajna. Then next, you can see that we are often reading this Chandrayana Vrata, Chaturmasya. All those things are performed with some aim in the mind. Some phalam, some benefit I need to get, so I'll engage in this yajna. But he's ready to sacrifice. He's ready to sacrifice his, controlling his senses, controlling his mind. So he's going to get his intention is some material benefit. So he performs his activities. So that is called as the tapomaya yajna. Then again, the Krishna is mentioning about the eightfold system of the Ashtanga yoga or the Hatha yoga. So some of the yogis are engaged in this Hatha yoga process, and by the Hatha yoga process they control their mind and senses, and they try to some of them try to merge into transcendence. So that is again called the Yoga Yajna. Then Swadhyaya Yajna. What is the Swadhyaya Yajna? Again, the study of the scriptures. Some of them are so much into deep study of the Vedanta Sutras, Vedic literatures, and by the Sankhya system. That's what they do. They are heavy tapasvis. They study the scriptures, and that's how they make progress. Now, in the process of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada gives a conclusion very nicely in his purport. He says the Krishna consciousness, however, is different from these because it is the direct service of the Supreme Lord. So that we already discussed before. There is indirect process and there is direct process. In indirect process, gradually your senses are purified, and then very slowly you just go through, you don't directly associate with the Lord, but rather you go through an indirect system in various parts of this karma kanda you take up, then you may take a process karma yoga, then jnana. Then by this process gradually you may come out of, you will detach yourself from matter, you will identify yourself as spirit soul, and then in certain realization you will merge with the Brahman, and when one is further advanced he may come to the realization of Paramatma. Then it's it's all in the rank of the same ladder, gradual step-by-step process. But here Krishna consciousness is directly engaging everyone in the service of the Lord. That means any background, any situation, you are a sinful person, sinful desires, whatever may be your situation, bhakti is so powerful, by engagement you can make progress. So Prabhupada is showing the contrast here, that Krishna consciousness process doesn't come under this category. It is directly chanting the names of the Lord, engaging in the process of Navavidha Bhakti and honoring only prasadam and all those things. Okay. We'll continue. Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by any one of the above mentioned types of sacrifice, but can be attained only by the mercy of the Lord and His bona fide devotees. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is transcendental. You see, so it is not part of this system, and you get this seed of to practice Krishna consciousness. It is possible only by coming in association with the pure devotee. Bhakti from the heart of a bhakta. That is our philosophy. Otherwise, it is not possible by your austerities, not possible by your swadhyaya, not possible by your yoga siddhis. We cannot draw the mercy of the Lord. Mercy flows from the Lord. It is costless. That is why it is called costless. And this costless mercy comes from the heart of the devotee. Okay. Text 29. Apane jigvati pranam prane panam tata pare pranapana ghati rudva pranayama parayanaha apare nitya niyatahara pranan praneshu jigvati. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. Now here in this verse, a further stress is given specifically on this process of this pranayama. How some of them, part of all the processes, here it is specifically speaking about the sacrifice of people engaged in the pranayama process. Srila Prabhupada points out that the pranayama is also one of the angas of the Hatha Yoga process. It is also in the Ashtanga Yoga, pranayama is in one level. So by pranayama, what they try to do, they control the breathing, and by that breathing, gradually it goes. Then the next level is a pratyahara. That means what? Mind is totally withdrawn from the sense object. Even the sense object is in front of you, you are totally withdrawn from the sense object. So these are all some of the practices that is done by these yogis. So Prabhupada elaborates in the purport about various yogas and how by the different the yoga methodologies by which the senses are completely curtailed. So that is being discussed. Now, in conclusion to this purport, Prabhupada is making a very significant point how a devotee does not go through this process and how he is transferred to the Supreme Abode. What is the process? Srila Prabhupada points out. So let's take a look at that. The Krishna conscious person, however, being always situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, automatically becomes the controller of the senses. You see here, there's big difference in all other processes, in the pranayama process, the hatha yoga process. He is taking so much endeavor that I will control my senses and mind by this heavy process. But here, what we are trying to do is, you may say, Prabhuji, we are also trying to do's and don'ts are there, but what is the fundamental basis? What is the underlying principle in our practice? In our practice is that we take complete shelter of Krishna. We offer our praise to Krishna. Where the very chanting of Hare Krishna is what is, we are asking the Lord, oh my dear Lord, and we are your eternal servant, we want to engage in your service. We want to give ourselves to Krishna. So Krishna is Rishika Isha. He is Rishikesha. He is actually the owner of our senses and mind. Now we think that this hand, this eyes, everything belongs. Actually, when we become advanced, we understand that this body belongs to my Guru, the senses, everything belongs to the spiritual master. Spiritual master means also to Krishna. So in that dependency he engages in service. So you get the mercy of the Lord by this. So then Krishna comes to protect us and he helps us in our progress. You are able to see the difference. This is the whole difference in the process, direct process and indirect process. So Prabhupada immediately points out that how the devotee transcends the modes. So at the end of the life he is naturally transferred to the transcendental plane of Lord Krishna. Consequently, he makes no attempt to increase his longevity. He is at once raised to the platform of liberation, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Mamchayo vabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samadhityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So when we come to the 14th chapter, we will see why Krishna is specifically speaking about this. By the pure process of bhakti yoga, it transcends the three modes. Otherwise, very difficult to transcend the three modes. Krishna gives a warning in the 7th chapter also, how Maya is difficult to transcend. She is also a very powerful energy of mind, but by this process of bhakti, he can transcend. Now, in this verse, also there is a mention about how the eating has to be controlled. There are some yogis who just sustain their lives just by, there are so many examples can be given. I'm not going to get into it, but one example that just comes to my mind of one yogi who just takes a little bit of honey every day. That's all, little honey, and he sustains his life. He goes on and like that. But here Prabhupada is pointing out how devotees are engaged. The practice of reduced eating is automatically done when one eats only Krishna prasadam, or food which is offered first to the Lord. Reducing the eating process is very helpful in the matter of sense control. And without sense control, there is no possibility of getting out of the material entanglement. Okay, so this is the point. So automatically the senses are controlled by honoring Krishna prasadam. Okay, so this is the process of Krishna consciousness. We don't restrain artificially. We honor prasadam, and by continuing to honor prasadam is non-different from Krishna, and we get the mercy of the Lord, and we make advancement. So this is the philosophy. So some of them are laughing, some of them are not able to get this point, reducing eating process. so the point is that it happens naturally. So Srila Prabhupada said that you eat like an elephant and you serve like an elephant. Okay. So then naturally, as we make progress, you don't have to artificially try now. Tomorrow, I will completely restrain myself. No need of that. We can eat as much as we want and then engage properly in Krishna's service. Otherwise, we will hear different sounds of snoring, and we will not be able. We will get stuck in this material world. Okay. So let's continue with the next verse. Yes, what to do? Some of the instructions that are there, some things are above our head, but at least we have to hear this. That is why we have transcendental. When we come in front of the spiritual master and he gives oral recitation of scriptures, then it rings an alarm. It wakes up. Oh my God, what am I doing? What I should do? Where I should go? So immediately, we start working for it. We become more serious in Krishna consciousness. That's why this hearing is so important. The moment we become slack in hearing, then everything becomes loose. We become too familiar with everything, and we lose track of it. So that is the point. Okay, now text 30. Sarvepyete yajnavido yajna shapitakal mashaha yajna shishtamrita bhujo yanti brahma sanatanam. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance toward the supreme eternal atmosphere. So now Krishna has pointed out that, so ultimately you have to engage in sacrifice. Now by this sacrifice, what happens? Sacrifice means it involves the control of the senses and the mind. So Srila Prabhupada is pointing out right there in the purport. Sense gratification is the root cause of material existence. Therefore, unless and until one is situated on a platform apart from sense gratification, there is no chance of being elevated to the eternal platform of full knowledge, full bliss and full life. So let us not forget, what is binding us in this material world? Ignorance is binding us in this material world. Ignorance is the cause of our sinful activities. So to come out of ignorance, Krishna has given us this system. So all the systems are directing ourselves to control of the senses and the mind. So that's why you see Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction, the very first instruction, what he is speaking? He is speaking about controlling the mind and senses. Vacho Vegam, Manasa, Krodha Vegam, Jigva Vegam, Udara Vegam, Upastha Vegam. Why he is speaking about all these things? Unless the senses and mind is controlled, we are not ready to take up spiritual life. And that happens by the process of Krishna consciousness. Naturally the senses and mind are controlled. We hear the instructions of the Lord and it happens like that. So here, that point is very much stressed here. Srila Prabhupada is further pointing out in the purport. All the above mentioned sacrifices help one to become cleansed of the sinful reactions of material existence. By this advancement in life, not only does one become happy and opulent in this life, but also at the end, he enters into the eternal kingdom of God, either merging into the impersonal Brahman or associating with the Supreme Personality of God at Krishna. So now this is the point that one has made progress. One can make progress by following the system of sacrifice that the Lord has given. So here Krishna has very clearly he has given what are the different other sacrifices, having raised the person from the level of inaction to action, and the action has got no reaction, and that happens by yajna. And those yajna, the greatest yajna is the Sankirtana yajna that we heard. And then what are the other yajnas and all the different indirect processes are mentioned. And there are two more verses which will speak about what will be the benefit of this yajna, what will happen if the yajna is not followed. Since we are running short of time, we will stop here. And again, I humbly request, sorry for the extra time. If you have questions, if something is not clear, please, some devotees here, you can check with me after the class, and others, please post your questions in the WhatsApp group. We will answer to that. Thank you very much. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.